Here's the problem. What you do in the 10 to 30 minutes before you speak can make or break the whole thing. Yet, most speakers either wing it or overhype themselves or fall into superstition. Here's my promise to you today. I'll give you a practical pre-game system you can actually use. No rabbit's feet, no power poses unless you want to, just proven ways to get your mind, body, and message ready to show up calm, confident, and connected. Too many speakers treat the pre-game as optional and then wonder why they feel shaky once they're on stage. And I've done it myself, and I've always regretted it when I have. Think of it like a pilot's checklist. If you skip this, then you're going to risk a bit of turbulence, a bit of a bumpy ride. So I'm going to share a quick story of when my own pre-game went wrong and how one tiny adjustment changed everything. Now, my first time doing open mic comedy, I'd wanted to do it for years, but never really had the nerve. I was terrified of it. I was really too scared of that vulnerability of putting yourself on a stage in the hopes of being funny and then bombing out big time. The shame and the self-criticism that would follow something like that might just shred my confidence completely. There was only one way I could get myself to do it. I gave myself permission to bomb badly. The biggest win would no longer be getting the laughs, but just getting up on that stage on the open mic. And sure, laughs would be really nice. And so many people had come to support me that I didn't want to let them down, but I also knew I didn't have to be funny for that. They were there to support me no matter what happened. When I lowered the stakes for myself, the nerves mostly disappeared. Did I still stumble a bit on stage trying to remember my set? Yeah, I did. Did it matter? Well, not so much. Did I get some laughs? I did, and it was amazing. But I don't think I could have done that if I'd needed to get those laughs to feel successful. It may also have helped that the two acts on before me both bombed, so the bar was set pretty low. That certainly worked in my favor. Your brain can turn into a saboteur right before you speak. It can start your thoughts racing, escape fantasy. Should I make a run for it? The old imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Can I do this? Well, you can reset your state in under 2 minutes. I'll show you how Stoic reframing, a visual exercise, a simple breathing pattern, and a nerves to energy reframe can shift your headspace from panic to presence. So think of this as espresso for your confidence without the shakes. This is the mental setup that I go through before a keynote or a workshop. To start this, lower your ego. Ego is your enemy. Remind yourself, this is not about me. I am not what's important here. It's about the message. It's about the audience. Be here for your audience. Then you can try something called box breathing. And you may have come across this before, and it's really simple. It's breathing in through your nose for 4 seconds, holding the breath for 6 seconds, and then breathing out for 8 seconds. Now, it doesn't have to be exact seconds. You can count those numbers in your head at whatever speed you want to go. But it is that thing of having the breathe in for 4, hold for 6, breathe out for 8. Will help you. Now, there are many different variations on this. If you practice something similar a little differently, carry on doing that. You do not have to implement exactly this, but this is the simplest method for box breathing. There's alternate nostril breathing if you want to try all that kind of stuff, like yoga kind of breathing. If you have knowledge and insight that, by all means, use those instead. The other trick to use here is peripheral vision or peripheral focus. And this is something that really just shifts you away from being focused in singularly on one particular thing. Like right now, I'm looking very directly at my camera, at you. And I'm also in peripheral vision, which means I can kind of see what's going on at the side of me. And one of the ways you can check in on that is just holding your hand by your head and wiggling your fingers, or trying to see what's on the wall or what's in the surroundings to the side of you, and it starts to shift you out of what we call direct focus or foveal vision into peripheral focus. And this does help to relax you. See if you can stay in peripheral vision. It's a good thing to practice for the whole of your talk. It will mean that you'll take in much more of how your audience is responding and reacting, and you're less likely to feel nervous. You're just less likely to be experiencing any intense emotions whilst you're in peripheral vision. So give it a try. Now, the final part of this is to remind yourself that your nervous feeling is physiologically exactly the same as feeling excitement. I do listen to the recent episode with Rebecca Williams where she talks exactly about this and why that is the case. So instead, choose to be excited. Recognize that feeling and say, right, maybe I can just decide that that is excitement rather than fear because it feels the same. How do I know that it's not? It could be excitement. So which is the more attractive emotion to feel? Nervous or excited? I'd go with excited. That choice when I made it for myself is the thing that led me to falling in love with speaking and presenting and getting excited, genuinely now feeling excited when I get on a stage. So try a 2-minute reset before your next talk. Go through that Stoic practice of reminding yourself that it's not about your ego, it's about your message and your audience. Put yourself into peripheral vision. Spend a minute or so doing box breathing, maybe just 3 or 5 cycles of breathing with box breathing, and then reframe your nerves as excitement and see how that feels. A common issue with speakers about to go on stage is that dry throat, the stiff shoulders, and the unwarmed voice that can make you sound flat or strained. Simple physical resets will make your voice stronger and your presence grounded. And I encourage you to check out the episode that I did not that long ago with Jimmy Cannon, voice coach, amazing guy. Gives us some great vocal exercises, some great ways to think about your voice and how you sound, and that you can definitely implement. But let's give you something simple here. So I'm going to share with you the quickest warm-ups that I know, but they don't make you look ridiculous backstage. Well, maybe one of them a little bit, but they'll keep your voice from crackling on the opening lines. So check out the episode with Jimmy Cannon. But one of the simplest vocal exercises you can do is kind of just humming up and down the vocal range and trying to make that hum as smooth as possible. Now, if you are not too shy, if you don't mind people thinking it might be a bit silly, try and add into the hum a bit of a blown raspberry with your lips. So your lips together and you're blowing them in a raspberry sound. It won't sound funny. It'll sound a bit like, it's not a nice noise, but going up and down your vocal range with that and smoothing that out as much as possible is going to help you warm up your voice. Now, of course, you probably do want to make sure you have some water available, ideally room temperature rather than cold, which might just affect your voice more. So that's a good thing to have as well. I also kind of like licorice tea. I find that licorice tea or those licorice tabs you can get, I think you have to be careful with tabs because they can some of them make your tongue black, but licorice in itself can be a great thing for helping to soothe your voice and give you a little bit of vocal resonance. So I do highly recommend that. One vocal warm-up is probably enough. Licorice, if you want to add that in there. Power poses, I don't care about those. I mean, if they help you or they make you feel good, then great. I've tried them. It honestly does nothing for me. The evidence of power poses working is not conclusive, unfortunately. But I would say this, if it helps you to stand like Superman or Wonder Woman in a big power pose and you feel good for that, go ahead and do it. But the posture that I do think you should do is something we call presenter stance. So you want your feet for this shoulder width apart. And shoulder width is generally usually not as far as you think it is. So it should be in line, feet in line with your shoulders as best you can and facing forward. You want your knees, your legs straight, but not locked. You don't want your knees locked up here. So you want to keep a fairly loose posture, arms by your side and head up straight. Now, it might feel a little unnatural because we're very used to often having our hands by our side or talking with our hands. And you can still do that, but it's going to come from the size of your body. You're going to maybe start your first line in that posture with your hands by your body. And so you can practice that whilst you're doing your vocal warm-ups. The more we practice these things, the more likely we are to do them when we're on the stage as well. So nice and simple. More than anything else, one simple vocal warm-up, stand in presenter stance, give yourself a posture check. You are good to go. Sometimes the message is the problem. And one common mistake that speakers make is trying to cram in the wings. So whilst you're backstage, you're trying to go through your whole talk. And that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. You're going to ramp up your nerves whilst you're doing that, particularly, and especially if there's a bit that you just can't remember. So it can also lead to things coming out a little robotic as you're trying to remember line by line, perhaps. Having a whole talk memorized is generally not the best idea anyway. You want to be able to still sound natural while you're speaking and presenting. So whilst you may, to some degree, follow a script, you also want to have the flexibility to talk around it as well. You should know your subject matter, your stories, and everything else going into your talk reasonably well anyway, to be able to not need it to be exactly as you wrote it, but you want it to still follow the pathway that you take. The key beats of your talk are the most important part. And certainly many people will say this, just to make sure the bits that you do memorize are your opening and your closing. Once you've got those, everything in between is more likely to flow. You know you're going to open strong, and you'll know you're going to close strong, and you can practice those bits to make them as natural as possible. So if you're going to practice anything backstage, I would say practice your opening, maybe your closing as well, but definitely your opening if you're going to practice that. However, it could actually be just as good, and it may be even more beneficial to have something more like a set list. Comedians have a set list when they go on stage. They know what they're going to be leading into from here to there and so on. So what's the first bit I'm going to talk about? What's the next bit I'm going to talk about? It could just be a word or a phrase or a sentence that reminds you, all right, that's what this part of the talk is. It gives you a lot more confidence. I know, and I do know speakers who will have essentially their set list on the stage taped to the floor in front of them, so that they don't have to go to a podium, or they don't have to pull a card out of their pocket. That set list is there, or it might be on a teleprompter for them as well if they're working with that, and they don't want a full-on script because they want to be more natural and improvised. So if you're going to memorize your opening and closing, and have your set list, have your run list for what you're going to talk about available to you as well. So you just have the key beats there. So let me explain why rehearsing your wedding vows in the taxi is a terrible idea, and what you should do instead. So look, I don't think cramming is ever a good idea. It doesn't really tend to work too well. You might get away with it once in a while, but it suggests that you haven't fully prepared. And that really is the issue here. I'd much rather you do that than no preparation at all, but it's still not great. Cramming the night before an exam isn't great. It might get you through the exam, but how much better could you do if you were fully prepared and relaxed? I will tell you this. My experience of cramming in my degree was nightmarish, because when it came to my final exams for my degree, I was a wreck. I wasn't sleeping well. I was cramming too much information in, and I knew I could have done so much better if I really just had put more work into being prepared for those exams. It's the same with your talks. If you don't practice and prepare fully, and not just on the day or just before, then you are not prepared. You must consider your practice time, your preparation time, to be just as important as the actual performance. These are a part of the performance. These are maybe in terms of an iceberg, the bits that are underwater, bits that the audience don't see. The audience get to see the iceberg, your performance, but all the preparation, the pre-time, the putting stuff together, the rehearsals, that whatever run-throughs you're doing, that's all part of the iceberg, the stuff that the audience just don't ever get to see, but it's the biggest part of the work. Your talk or your keynote, your talk might be, I don't know, if you're doing Toastmasters, 5 to 8 minutes. If you're doing something a bit bigger, it might be 10 minutes, 15, 20. Keynotes generally around 30, 45, 60 minutes or so. That's a long time to be on stage, but it's not nearly as long as the time you should have spent preparing. If you don't practice, you haven't really put in the work. You're just showing up and winging it. Really, okay, you may not be improvising the whole thing, but you're putting extra pressure on yourself to deliver something that you haven't really prepared for. Your delivery is going to be much better and more natural when you are practiced. Your comfort level is going to be much better when you know that you know your material. And your audience is going to sense this as well. So whilst you might get away with it, you will know that you could have done better. If you're still getting could do better on your internal report card, it's time to fix that and know that you can do better, and you will do better by committing yourself to preparing thoroughly for your presentation. You don't need to over rehearse. You just need to rehearse, practice to the point where you know that you know it, where it's kind of in you. It's part of you. You can't really forget it because you've been through it so many times. It does not need to be verbatim, of course. It really just needs to be so well practiced that it's going to be natural for you, because practice will come as you deliver your talk more and more. But in the early days of doing that, without the practice and preparation, it's going to be hard. You are just making life harder for yourself. And I do think it's that thing that it always feels like is boring. It's not the sexy part of presenting. You just want to be out there doing your talk on your presentation, getting the applause or whatever else, getting the sales for your product or service, whatever else you might be offering. Those are the fun and the sexy and exciting parts of speaking. The stuff that isn't so sexy or exciting is the prospecting, is the follow-up calls, the CRM, the personal reviews or the event reviews, the calendar management, the travel plans, and the preparation and rehearsal time for your talk. These are much less fun, but they're super critical for you to have success as a speaker or presenter. Not all rituals are going to help. Some are just going to disguise your anxiety and some are just pointless. So spotting the traps can save you from draining your energy before you've even begun. So let me reveal 3 pre-game mistakes that do more harm than good and how to avoid them. Over warming up, big problem. If you are warming up your voice and your body until you actually feel exhausted, not great. No, by the way, I do have a playlist that I can, if I have time and it's our environment, I can pop my earbuds in, pop my pre-stage playlist on, and it's all stuff that's helping me to increase my energy, to turn on my energy, not to be ridiculously high energy, but just to get to a good energy level that I know I'm going to feel good going out on stage. I want it still to feel natural, but I want to be pumped up because I know that my energy, my emotional state, which I can manage, is going to be leading the emotional state of the audience. It's very important that I get myself into the emotional state that I want my audience to experience as well, so that I can help to lead them there. Word for word rehearsal as well. Avoid it, because especially at the last minute, it's just going to mess you up. It's actually think, oh, I didn't remember that bit. You will wind yourself up even further and probably struggle to remember more because you're going to go, oh, what did I write? What did I write? That's what's going to be coming up in your head rather than just, all right, let's find another way of saying this because I can't remember exactly how I wrote it. And that would also be fine. No one will notice. You can take the pause, think about what comes next, remind yourself of your mental playlist of what you've just said, and then carry on forward. You can take 30 seconds or more as a pause if you really need to. Your audience will stay with you. They will give you the benefit. But if you start to panic, if you start to get yourself caught up in your, oh my goodness, I can't remember a thing, you're going to stay stuck in that. And you might end up having to stop the presentation altogether. I've seen that happen. Or you might just end up running off stage. I've also seen that happen. Skipping post-game reflection is going to mean that you never really improve your pre-game. So we must always look at how we got on. Reflection and review are really important parts of the process for you. You're going to get feedback and you're going to want it from your audience, ideally, from your bookers, from whoever else is involved in the event. Get as much feedback as you possibly can. Hopefully it's going to be great feedback because you've done all of these things to prepare yourself and you are good to go. But if it's not, it's potentially going to help you to develop and grow. But the feedback that you give to yourself is even more important. So it can be great, especially in earlier days of speaking, to record your presentations, to record your talks. Not only does that potentially give you material for your demo videos, which is really good to have, it also gives you the opportunity to watch yourself back, to get used to the sound of your own voice, to how you look on stage, and to be able to see, do I look all right? Am I doing weird hand gestures? How's my voice sounding? Is my intonation right? What's my energy like throughout this? You may not be able to give yourself a fully detached view of your performance, but you will have some level of that just by being able to watch yourself back. Very different to trying to rehearse in the mirror, which I've heard people suggest, and I hate that as advice. Never practice in a mirror. You're never going to have that on stage, and you're going to be distracted by silly things whilst you are rehearsing your talk. So please don't do that. But it's a good idea to get used to hearing the sound of your voice, to seeing yourself on camera, because whilst it can feel uncomfortable, a lot of us don't like looking at ourselves or hearing our voices initially. You do get over it. You do, with repetition, move past it. It becomes irrelevant and you just get used to it. It becomes normal for you. It might not be right now, but when it is, you'll know that that's a good thing to get over, because it is one of the things that sometimes stops people from moving forward. So reflect and review for yourself more than anything else. So by now you've got the principles, and here's the completely stripped down version that you can steal. So before your next talk, test this 3-step ritual. 2-minute breathing and posture reset. So your box breathing and your presenter stance. 1 short vocal warm up. So you're humming, it could be you're humming with the brr sound, the raspberry blowing. Rehearse only your opening, maybe your closing as well, but only really your opening. If you've got that, you are good to start. You're getting the momentum. So try it, and you will feel the difference before you even hit the stage. So there you have it, a simple pre-game system that actually works. Now, the problem that most speakers face is that they either do too many of these things or none of them at all. So the promise is simple, and the premise as well. If you manage your mind, body, and message in these crucial minutes, you're going to walk out and present confidently and ready to connect with your audience. So next time on Present Influence, I'm going to be speaking with Joel Benge, and Joel is an expert on message mastery, and he helps people in the tech world to be able to talk good. It's his words, not mine. Next solo episode, though, I'll be taking a look at the ethics of influence and the tricky line between genuine credibility and manufactured status. So that's one you won't want to miss. If this is your kind of content, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment if you're going to try any of these techniques. And if you do, I'd love to hear how they go for you. See you next time.